If you've ever wondered if it's possible to boil down a Star Wars film to just one scene, today we will try to explore that idea a little bit. Hello. Before we get started, I just have to say this to be clear. I'll be presenting my own ideas, and of course in my pickings I will be reflecting my own opinions of what the most important aspects of each film is. I'll be going through the options I considered and then tell you why I picked the one I did. Let me know in the comments if you have a similar list for one of the films or each of the films. I'd love to hear your opinions and preferences. We're going through them in chronological order in universe, so we're starting with The Phantom Menace. And the options I considered here were the pod racing scene and then the Duel of the Fates. And I guess it's a bit of an obvious choice, but I did end up choosing the Duel of the Fates because, well, you know, it's the Duel of the Fates and it basically determined who Anakin's master would be. It's debatable how much of a difference it would have really made if Qui-Gon was his master, but it's still an impactful fight, and of course it has a big effect on the events that would follow. The Phantom Menace really is about the origins of the Skywalker story, and even though in this particular scene Anakin himself isn't present, it's still very much about him, and it shows one of the fateful events which shaped the story of Anakin Skywalker. Then for Attack of the Clones, I considered Anakin avenging his mother and killing the Tusken village, then the first battle of Geonosis, Yoda vs Dooku, and Anakin and Padme's marriage. And I chose to go with the first battle of Geonosis. Considering the title of the film, it's really about the start of the Clone War. Another big part, of course, is Anakin's and Padme's romance, but I would say that the start of the war is maybe still a bit more important. The first battle of Geonosis is really the first time the clones work as Republic soldiers and the first time the Jedi work as military leaders, and it marks the beginning of a war that would end up being really fateful for the Republic. Then with Revenge of the Sith, I considered the Anakin and Obi-Wan versus Dooku fight from the beginning, then when Anakin saves the Chancellor, then Anakin versus Obi-Wan, and then the kind of the parallel with the twins being born and Vader in his suit. There are many really important scenes in episode 3, but after some thinking I end up choosing the scene where Anakin saves the Chancellor because it kind of shows exactly what the film is about. Palpatine's grooming of Anakin pays off as Anakin makes the fateful decision of saving Palpatine and basically takes the final step of going down the path to the dark side. We get to see him become Vader, even though he isn't in a suit yet, he is now Vader. This moment is really what this film and the rest of the prequels built up to. For Solo, I considered the beginning on Corellia, and then Han shooting Beckett, and then Han getting the Millennium Falcon. This was a really difficult one since the point in Solo is just to give Han a backstory. It's not really that deep or anything, it's just like a fun adventure. One big contender was when he kills Beckett. You know, he learns the lesson to shoot first, but I still decided to choose the very beginning with Han and Kira on Corellia, since it shows where he really came from and where he grew up. Comparing him in that scene to some of the scenes in the end, you can really see how much he changed from the person he was back on Corellia. It really shows like his origins. Maybe I made a wrong decision in this one. Maybe I should have picked the one where he shoots Beckett. I don't know. This was a really difficult one. Let me know what you think about this. Then for Rogue One, I considered when the Death Star destroys Jedha, the Eadu sequence, and then Jyn and Cassian versus Krennic, and the Vader hallway scene. The Vader hallway scene is for sure the most iconic scene to come out of Rogue One, but I wouldn't say it's the most important one because Rogue One isn't about Vader. It's about, well, how Rogue One was able to get the Death Star plans and how Galen Erso helped the rebellion. Therefore, I feel like the final confrontation between Jyn and Cassian and Krennic kind of showcases what the film is about. It really gets to the core of the thing that the film is concerned with, if that makes sense. And also, these are the main characters in the story. It doesn't really feel like an epic moment compared to the Vader hallway scene, but it's not really trying to be an epic moment. It's a very impactful moment and a very crucial moment. For A New Hope, I considered the Binary Sunset, the Death Star prison escape, Obi-Wan versus Vader, and then the trench run. It would have been more obvious to choose the trench run, And while that's a very valid choice for this, I went with the binary sunset because I feel like it's very symbolic and it's also a very iconic scene. It shows the start of Luke's journey and his longing to get off Tatooine and experience whatever the galaxy has in store for him. It really does show off the person Luke is in A New Hope. And the fact that it's on Tatooine is also important because the Skywalker story is so connected to Tatooine. As I'm talking about it, I'm starting to wonder if I should have chosen the trench run instead, but I'm going to stick with my choice. The options I considered for Empire Strikes Back were the Battle of Hoth, Luke's training on Dagobah, and I Am Your Father. I feel like it's a very obvious choice, but it's iconic for a reason. So yeah, I went with Vader's reveal to Luke on Bespin. It is such an important scene, and the fact that Vader is Luke's father plays a huge part in the main Skywalker saga. This scene is also pretty dark, and I think that's fitting because I see Empire as being a bit of a darker film compared to the other ones in the original trilogy. For Return of the Jedi, I considered Han's rescue, Luke and Dagobah, Throne Room, and the end celebration. I really wanted to choose the end celebration because it's one of my favorite Star Wars scenes. But I had to keep the assignment in mind, so I chose the Throne Room with Vader versus Luke and Vader's ultimate sacrifice. It's one of the most powerful moments in Star Wars, and of course it's also a very crucial moment in the film itself. You can interpret the title of Return of the Jedi in different ways. One of them is that the Jedi who returns is Anakin. Maybe a more correct view would be that the one who returns is Luke or the Jedi Order, but I like the Anakin interpretation better, so I'm gonna go with that one. This scene also really gets to what the film is about, and it's a very important part of the Skywalker saga. There's a lot more we could discuss about this scene, but I think that covered the most important parts of it. The Force Awakens. This one was a bit difficult because I kind of struggled to pin down what The Force Awakens really is about. I ended up just thinking that the main part is introducing a new era and the new characters. And options I considered was Rey's introduction on Jakku, then Rey's Force vision on Takodana, Han's death, and then Rey and Finn versus Kylo. I was really stuck with this decision. I don't know if I made the right choice, but I decided to go with Rey and Finn versus Kylo on Starkiller Base, just because it shows us something about the characters. First of all, the fact that Rey is very talented and has a natural connection to the Force, and that Kylo recognizes this and isn't interested in killing her, but he sees her potential and wants her to join him. We also see how brave Finn really is. Then for The Last Jedi, the options I considered were the Force connection scene in the hut, and then the Throne Room fight, then Luke versus Kylo, and then Luke's sacrifice. The Last Jedi has kind of two main important parts. One being the story of Kylo and Rey and how they kind of have a connection and they can work together, but they are ultimately, in the end, still on different sides. And the other one is Luke's story about how he finds his true self again. For The Last Jedi, I chose Luke's sacrifice, so basically the scene where he becomes one with the Force. Luke basically makes the ultimate sacrifice here and he's able to save the rebellion, proving to himself that he can do it, and that he shouldn't let his past mistakes define him, and that he can be that legend that he was made out to be. Then for The Rise of Skywalker, the scenes I considered were Rey going to the Death Star ruins, and then Rey returning to Ahch-To, and then the end of Palpatine, and lastly Rey visiting the Lars homestead. I chose the final scene, so Rey visiting the Lars homestead. This film is about the end, kind of, and this is the end of the end, so I thought it was fitting. Maybe, we return to the origins of the Skywalker story, and we're kind of saying goodbye to it in a way. It also distills to a very important aspect of the Skywalker story, which is family. That's all for today. I hope you enjoyed watching. I have some bigger projects coming up very soon and I'm really excited to get started with those. But I hope I will see you here again next week.
Don't touch anything.
But I was going into Tashi Station to pick up some power converters.
Keep your concentration here and now where it belongs.
But they're gonna kill her!
Not likely.
I don't even know what I'm doing here. We're wasting our time.
Are you brainless?